Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? I mean, I know right there's good, but whenever I get really loud, it gets really, really peaky. We don't want peaky. Let's do peaky. No peaky. Peaky Blinders, not to be confused with Sneaky Pete. Two totally different productions and definitely a different target audience on both of those. Welcome back. It's time for some more Cigars and Manhood. Well, it's the end of another day. Thank you so much for joining me. I am out here enjoying a cigar, excited to talk to you tonight. We're going to continue some more in Senator Josh Hawley's book, Manhood, The Masculine Virtues America Needs. We're going to enjoy a cigar, share a couple personal stories, and hopefully challenge you. Maybe you'll laugh, maybe you'll cry. Maybe not the crying, but hopefully you'll be challenged and appreciate the time that you decided to spend watching the video. Thank you so much for joining. Wanted to share tonight a little bit more about my time working at Sonic. Ooh. Do I say Sonic? Can I say Sonic? I'll say Sonic. So have you ever... always so. Why do I always start with so? Have you ever worked in fast food, or as it is illustriously titled, quick service food? Quick service, whatever. Fast food. I, like you, have worked fast food. You may not have, but I have. I'm bringing you along so you can enjoy this journey with me. But to high school, elementary, middle school, son of a mother. Do you remember career day at school? You got to sit and think about all those jobs that you were going to have, how much money you were going to make, all the fun things you were going to do, how you were going to travel and everything. Well, career day was all about dreams and big dreams and what you hope to accomplish, and the vehicle, the job, you were going to take and get you to your dreams. Well, have you ever had a job that you were kind of embarrassed about having? I personally did. I worked at Sonic, which is a fast food restaurant, Sonic Drive-In, for those of you who are not familiar with it. I started out as a cook at Sonic, and it was a really humbling experience for me. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a humbling experience that I should have had, but my mindset at that time was very, very, what do I want to say? I didn't have the best mindset when I was working there. I was actually very ashamed of my job. I would never mean to belittle a job. This was my personal struggle with it. I had been a children's pastor before working as a cook at Sonic. I came from a family that did ministry, and all of the people who were in our circles were all ministry. And they expected me to be in ministry, and they knew that I had been in ministry before. When I took this job as a cook at Sonic, I was very, very discouraged. Mentally, I struggled. I wondered, why am I here? What in the world am I doing? And I fought for the longest time to actually even share with anybody that I was working at Sonic. When I would see people who I hadn't seen for a long time, and they would walk up to me, I would get this fear in the pit of my stomach because I knew they were going to ask me, hey, what are you doing these days? I knew that as soon as I would tell them what I was doing, their countenance would change. Sure enough, every single time it happened, I would say, I'm working at Sonic. The look on their face was just bewilderment. And they'd say, why are you there? Like, you're better than that. And that did not help me get out of that mindset of negativity. I worked at Sonic for a year before I finally got a revelation that set me free. It was one night, I was a manager at the time, and I was scrubbing the floors by myself. It was closing time, wondering why, God, why am I here? What am I doing? And I felt as clear as day, God say, you're here because I have you here. It was just so liberating in that moment to recognize that there was a reason for me being there. I didn't just have to go to work, and I didn't have to define myself by my job. And that's really what I got from that. After I had that moment that night closing, I would actually look forward to that moment when I would see somebody I hadn't seen. And sure enough, it was about a week later, I had a buddy of mine come up to me, and he said, hey, so what are you doing these days? And I got the biggest smile on my face because I knew how uncomfortable it was going to make him. And I said, I'm working at Sonic. And he looked at me, sure enough, same bewildered look, same question, why are you there? But the difference was I had changed. I had a new revelation, and I said, I am here because this is where God has me. I say that to challenge you. If you have ever struggled with, or maybe you are struggling with, whether or not you are in a job that you can be proud of, I want you to be set free, because for me, it was a moment, and I still reference it to this day, how Sonic set me free. It was that I realized that I am not defined just by my job. My work helps to grow me and help me become who I will be, but it does not define me. And that was so liberating, because if I allowed something to shape me and hold me mentally in a negative way, then if I got into a position that I felt was high enough or had enough prestige, I would be held just as captive by that job as I was by the other job. If I was ashamed of what I would do, then I would have too much pride in what I did when I got to where I felt like I had arrived. And I don't want to be held captive by an identity that is tied to a vocation. I say that I want to challenge you. I hope that you can break free if you are struggling with that. If you have found too much attachment in a positive way and you find too much of your identity, and there's a crisis, if there is a threat to even possibly losing that position, or if you've lost that position that you felt was an illustrious position, you are more than your job. If nobody has told you that, if you have not been able to break free from that mindset, I want you to know you are more than your job. Tell you what, you see some crazy things when you work in fast food. You have, make sure I don't have anything in the teeth. I saw some great people working in fast food. I saw some challenging people who worked in fast food. If you've been in fast food before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I had a guy who was actually a descendant. He and his brother were direct descendants to Davy Crockett, the Davy Crockett. I also worked with a guy who was a cook who didn't want to do dishes. I don't know what his hang-up was, but every single night I would ask him, just clean up the kitchen, take care of the dishes, and restock. He wouldn't do dishes. He'd leave the whole thing piled up every single time. Fun times. There was this one kid who worked there. He was the one I think I told you about, who misspelled his name on his application. He was energetic, and he was eager to be a car hop because as a cook, he felt he didn't make enough money, but he knew he could make enough if he was a car hop. He kept trying to convince our general manager that he needed to work as a car hop, and our car hops had to skate. The regional manager was coming in to inspect the store, and he thought that this was his time to shine. Went back to the back, grabbed a pair of skates, skated out into the parking lot, and was trying to show off his skills. The general manager pulled up right as he is skating backwards. He hits a rock and he falls down. He wasn't hurt, but his pride certainly was. Poor kid. He never did get to be a car hop. He had big dreams, and he was fun to work with. In tonight's reading from the book, I just wanted to keep going on. Senator Hawley is continuing to talk about the importance of manual labor. And he says, a man is meant to build, to work. From his studies across cultures of Micronesia, Melanesia, Africa, the Mediterranean, and the Americas, the anthropologist David Gilmour concluded that the critical threshold marking the passage from boyhood to manhood was the point at which a boy produces more than he consumes and gives more than he takes. In short, manhood begins when a boy ceases to be dependent and becomes someone who can provide and build. There's something in the character of a man that responds to the character of work. While he labors to shape and manage the world, the labor itself shapes his soul. Studies show that men who work are more confident, more emotionally stable, and of course, more prosperous. Men are meant to work, and they should. Men who work are more likely to be happy, more likely to be married, and more likely to have children. My advice to young men looking for work is to do whatever honorable work is available. Work is a good thing. No work is beneath you. I never had a job I didn't learn something from, is what his grandfather used to say to him. Contrast that attitude with the line that emerged from the chattering classes in the 1960s, repeated ad nauseum since, that some jobs are simply dead end, not sufficiently stimulating or rewarding to be compelling as work. That notion makes the value of work depend on the job's social status, which means, in practice, it depends on what the culture's opinion, the opinion makers of the culture think of it. And the opinion makers don't work blue-collar jobs. This is how we end up with the increasingly widespread idea that manual labor is somehow degrading. The Bible's view is that all work is worthwhile if it is performed in service to God and others. As long as it is honest labor, every job has a purpose. Every job provides a service. Every job hones a skill. Ask whether it is useful to others and offered to God. If it is, it's meaningful and worthwhile. The social status of work means nothing. What others think of it is irrelevant. Honest work honestly dignifies the worker. The sooner you get employed, the more skills you gain. And the more skills you gain, the sooner you advance in the workforce. Studies show the best job training program is not surprisingly a job. The best place to learn new skills and cultivate productive habits is in the workforce. To become a man, you must work. You must contribute. You must give more than you take. You know, I really appreciate what he's been bringing out in this, and in that work is more than just about the activity itself and what you're producing on the outside. It's what's happening on the inside. And that is so true. I cannot reinforce that enough. It is so vital for you to experience these things when you put your effort into it. As men, there is something, like he says, that is refined within us as we are refining our skills and honing our skills. So I hope that you got something out of this tonight. I hope it was challenging. I hope it made you laugh. I hope that you enjoyed it enough that if you are not subscribed to the channel already, that you would consider subscribing. If you liked it, please give me that thumbs up. If you liked it enough, please share it on social media. And if you would, add something in the comments. Add a story that you had about a job that you may have worked. If you've had any fast food stories that were pretty fun or funny, I'd love to hear about those. As always, if you are in the Lebanon area and would like to join me, I would love to share a cigar with you and change the world. I think that sounds okay. Does that sound okay? I'm a loud talker, so let's hear the audio playback. You know what's interesting to me? Everybody loves to see the B-roll. Have you noticed that? Like the outtakes and all that kind of stuff. Why? Why is that? What's interesting is to think about the fact that we don't like to see, or we like to, I guess, we appreciate the final polished product, but there is something in us that wants to see the unpolished, the raw. And yet, all we want to show off is the polished version of ourselves. When was the last time you showed somebody your B-roll?